talking about BuildOts. So we had the news earlier today that BuildOts have made an acquisition of another very cool construction tech company in the space, which I'm sure our audience will be very familiar with. So we will get to that. Dustin, you have been, or you are, I think it's just finished, Groundbreak.
I'm currently here. There's one more day. So yeah,
one
it
more
was
day,
fun.
of course. So we're going to hear about what's going on over in Houston. Then we will have Luigi Lacorte from Provision, who has just raised a $7 million US dollar seed round. We have been very good friends with Provision for some time on Bricks and Bytes. I think we spoke to Brendan back in 2022, which was, wow, some time ago. Then we'll have Tala from Canada Intelligence. They have just raised a $5.5 million US dollar seed round, and then we will wrap up for today. So, first off, BuildOts has acquired Gender. So, my understanding of this acquisition is that BuildOts at the moment, they currently use image data to track progress on construction sites, but no data that exists with actually what's going on in real time, i.e. the workforce. So what the acquisition of Gender does is allows them to get an understanding of what is happening on the construction project in real time, then adjust or even learn from things that they can change or make and yeah, I guess speed up or course correct when things start getting in delay. And I think it's very cool because I haven't seen like an acquisition. Well, certainly like maybe I'm just uneducated in this, but I haven't seen from where we've been covering this, where a company like BuildOts, another big tech company, or should we say not one of the huge ones, but a bigger tech company, have made an acquisition like this. So I'm very curious as to your guys' thoughts on this. Dustin, have you looked at this?
I haven't looked at it, but I think it makes a lot of sense for the space. I mean, Drone Deploy did acquire Struction Site, which kind of is in the similar space. And I think that telematics and being able to track workforce productivity in the field seems to be heating up because resource management is kind of critical for a lot of these projects these days. So yeah, I think you'll actually see like thematically, like there's a lot of companies that are working on not full products, but really good features or problems. And you might see some of them just say, hey, we should be merging with some of these other companies as well, which could be a strategy for people to, have a more valuable product offering. But I mean, at Building Connected, we bought TradeTap very early, and it was one of the best things we ever did. It is a strategy that's not used enough pre-public companies, but there's a lot of creative value out there.
Cool. Martin, what about you?
I don't know. I have a mixed feelings actually. Where progress tracking is kind of outcome based, when for workforce tracking, I just don't know how can you blend these two to get. I think these are two different products, at least in my head. Unless
I'll give you an example where you can blend the two, Martin.
Okay.
So perhaps you can continue afterwards with what you're thinking. So one application where you see the two blended is actually when your subcontractor hands in, payment application for a change order that you made. And so now they did something to this room somewhere on the 7th floor of your high-rise construction, and your workforce monitoring solution can potentially say, there was only 2 people in that room for 2 days. Why?
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, why is that invoice so high? So continue.
Yeah, I like that.
Maybe.
I have been on the receiving end of numerous of these kind of claims before, where people are claiming like, yeah, we took 2 guys for 5 days, and you're like, really? But then they're like, prove it otherwise, and you can't really. So legit.
And these are big numbers quickly, huh?
Yeah. Change orders can be brutal, and they usually are over specified, overpriced. Feels like people they feel that they can do it. Yeah, so that's actually
I think, Martin, to your point, like if you see, for example, like, I don't know, you're collecting data because the team has spent like a long time in one room on a site, which they shouldn't have, But you
Also
don't
good
know
point.
that without tracking the workforce, and then suddenly you can realize, oh, we're delayed because we've spent too long, I don't know, on the third floor doing the drywall when we should have been spending more time on the second floor doing the first fix electrics, whatever the comparison might be.
Yeah, I think there might be something there. I just feel like it's a different product and it's a pivot, which is fine. I think it becomes it becomes a different product, at least in my head. Instead of just progress tracking, then it becomes more commingled with contractors, subcontractors, like how they're spending time. And Patrick, to your example, I get that sometimes these like 2 days spent in a room and there's a big bill for that, but sometimes there is a reason why these things cost more than they would normally cost if the works were scheduled according to the plan. Yeah, because obviously you need to take people from somewhere else, and maybe there's some other things as well. I think it's interesting to see what product it will be. I don't think there is anything similar, unless I'm missing something that would
Similar between build-outs and Gender, you mean?
Similar that would track the progress and track the workforce at the same time, and providing some sort of outcome from blending those two.
Yeah, because it's technologically, you're not just technologically, even from the application, right? You're solving for something fundamentally different. So if you look at the space that open space build-outs and the guys are going after, in the end, you can't have a super granular temporal resolution, as in taking pictures all the time or taking video all the time. It's not feasible from every angle that you think about it. Now, the worker tracking on the other side, that's a movement problem, right? So you literally want to see how people positioned at a certain point in time, and that you can solve with certain very, let's say, inexpensive but well-placed sensors. And actually, I want to get Eris, the CEO of Gender, on, because they had early in their journey a pretty smart hack about how to use the hoist on high-rise construction sites to make sure that people actually become compliant with using Gender. But I'm not going to steal his thunder. He'll tell us all about it when he has time. Right now, he's unfortunately on an airplane, if I understand that correctly, Owen.
He is?
Oh, did you say that? No. Yeah.
Yeah. He's on an airplane. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So I think it's. Sorry, my point is, Martin. I think it's completely different. I guess technological and commercial approaches to tracking completely different things. Which, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but does Procore actually have a good workforce tracking application? I'm not sure they do. A good one?
No.
Not to the extent that Gender actually is using wearables as a hardware element.
I don't think anyone has a good solution for actually monitoring. Like, you have they acquired a company called LaborChart, which is a workforce management application. But in terms of actually tracking worker productivity in the field, that is a very challenging issue to tackle. I think, though, that if you can get some sort of information on who is actually participating in, like when you estimate, you're estimating production rate. And that production rate has like materials installed, equipment, it has a crew associated with it. And if that production rate, you're assuming that's a 4-person crew, but then you realize we meet our production rate and only 2 people are actually doing anything, then you can make adjustments to how you're forecasting. You can talk to your crew. What the hell are you guys doing? Because I know from the information. So there is a lot of information to be gleaned from marrying production and actually marrying who was doing it. Because
Yes,
now is productivity and production are the crews that I'm staffing for, or is it just lackadaisical crews? And so I think that there is some interesting stuff that will come out if you aggregate enough information, like who's actually doing these things, and you'll see how productivity diminishes as you go floor by floor. Well, what's the actual curve look like in some of those things, which would be quite challenging to
this
track.
production rate is super interesting, actually, because to my not very limited knowledge on estimating, I think it's based on some sort of norms and some sort of typical, I don't know, typical production rate, whatever it means
Like
for the
proxies.
particular. Yeah. For a particular task, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
this-
how you're supposed to do it.
And no, but this has been established when, like probably in certain countries, regions, decades ago, on maybe different materials as well, different techniques, different environments, things change, etc. So
Yeah.
actually, tracking live, like working events, let's call them, and taking conclusions out of those could be a step up to adjust these production rates, perhaps.
Well, they know their actual cost associated for those production rates. The thing is, they don't know how productive that whatever that
People or
labor
crew is,
people
yeah.
are. Like, was
Yeah.
that because they're paying people, if it's a 4-person crew, they're paying them, so they know they paid them. But were operating at 50% capacity
Yeah.
each person? So that's
Yes.
what they don't know.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Patrick, you have
do you
like a look like thoughts are going through the head.
Constantly, man. That this is my I don't understand this world kind of look. So the resting face.
Patrick, any comment? Do you have any opinions on the acquisition?
Specifically this one?
Yeah.
It could be a match made in heaven. It could be a match made in heaven. I think very highly of Ares. I think super resilient, great product mind and understanding technology and the sector. Wonderful relationships with customers from what I have found over the years. And then, look, I mean, he's coming again into a super ambitious company with BuildOts. Not an easy space for sure, right? So this is a hyper competitive space where customers, I hate spaces where customers have buying choice. I'm going on the record saying that. I like it when customers have no buying choice. In this space, customers have a lot of buying choice, but he's marrying certainly with one of the top contenders that customers want to have in buying processes and evaluate that. And then from a technological perspective, or sorry, let's rather say from a product perspective, they bring something into BuildOts that BuildOts doesn't have, and BuildOts competitors perhaps don't have. And as you guys just told me, Procore perhaps doesn't have that, and maybe ACC, I don't know, right? But right, so exactly. So now you're adding something where a BuildOts customer can move beyond the pure progress tracking into the workforce tracking and then correlate the two. I think it's actually going to get you a ton of customer interest, get you a ton of tender processes, and will also lead to conversions because of that differentiation. I think it's a good acquisition.
Dustin, with your experience of previously acquiring a startup, what is your advice to founders or teams that are acquiring a startup? What would you say?
Well, the founders have to be aligned because one of them is going to take a back seat, and you have to. Sometimes it's hard for a founder to do.
Yeah.
So you have to get to know that individual and talk about, well, can our companies create more value than us? Because usually what happens is there are adjacent product offerings, right? So they know that long term, company A has to move into company B, and company B has to move into company C. So would it be better if they married their products together, never competed, and then going to market becomes accelerated because they just got what they're going to have to do in 2 years overnight? Essentially, like there's some integrations and a lot of things that have to take place. So if you look at that creative value, and then does that make it even harder for people to compete if they were to move into that market, because now you have a much bigger wedge and a much bigger product offering? So I think you really have to think about that like, how many resources are we going to spend? So for example, with Building Connected, I wouldn't mind sharing this. Eventually we would have beat TradeTap no matter what. And I talked with Justin. I was like, well, the way the market is, everyone has to have bidding. Not everyone has to have qualifications. Because of that, I'm going to be able to build more revenue, eventually raise more capital. Eventually, they had a better qualification solution. However, the amount of resources I was going to spend just to win qualifications was going to be a lot. It was going to cost us a lot. It was going to be a war. They had partnerships with XXL. So we were able to come to an agreement that, hey, why fight this battle? I like your talent. I want to work with you. Let's give you equity and build. And it was a mostly equity transaction. So now everyone's incentivized, and then Justin got to keep running what does qualifications of the future look like for construction? Keep working as partnerships. And now customers didn't have to select, do we do this qualification tool or building connecteds? And we didn't have to discount our pricing because we were going to give qualifications for free. Now we get to upsell. Like, it was a match made in heaven. And I see a lot of opportunities out there.
Sounds like you also like it when customers have less choice.
I do.
Competition is good, but not for us.
No.
Staying on this just for a second, Owen, if I can. Where do startups like BuildDots have money to acquire other startups? Is it from balance sheet or is it from investors? Like, what's the...
If I read the article correctly, it was from investors, but I don't know. When I was reading it, I couldn't work out whether that was how the article was written or whether it was intention, like it is actually factual. So,
because every time we speak about unicorns and larger startups, I think for me it begs the question: are they profitable or not? And I know that you guys smile when I ask this because it's not that relevant in the startup world. But if a company is not profitable, that means that they don't have much money on their balance sheet. How do they acquire other startups?
So let's get one thing out of the way before I let the other guys chime in. So most of the M&A that you see within venture land is actually share deals. So actually the smallest amount of deals, but the largest by volume, is actually done in some kind of cash transaction, whereas the largest number of smaller companies, it's typically share deals. And so Dustin has explained the logic perfectly. I can get valued higher than you can, so there's a multiple arbitrage. Why don't you take shares in my company, and I'm going to get you for an attractive deal, and I preserve cash. There are even deals in distressed situations. I mean, these M&As also happen, where it's a combination of share deal and you have to give me also on top some additional cash to make that transaction happen. That also happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Cool. And would when a company, obviously we can't speak for BuildDots, but how long ago do you think that they were looking, or even just generally, as a company thinking like, okay, this is a space we want to go into, do we build or do we buy? Like, do we build it ourselves or do we just go out and find someone? Or are they more sort of reactively looking at the market and saying, okay, this could be complementary to our product. Let's investigate whether our customers want it and then whether it makes sense to do a deal. Is there any like scientific thinking when it comes to these sorts of deals?
I guess I'll talk from my experience. I don't think you're actively pursuing, when you're an early stage company, what opportunities are there for something like this. So that has to come about opportunistically. And you can only consider something like this as if you're really, really confident, so they don't materialize overnight. I would guess that Justin and I were kicking the can for 6 months. But as you get bigger and bigger, it's something that you should actually consider more and more. So it's kind of correlated to your growth. As you become larger and larger, these are opportunities that you should consider in your calculus of how we are going to ultimately build our roadmap, in my opinion. And what Patrick said is, yes, there is a lot of companies that are technically very cheap and can augment your product portfolio quite well because they just don't have a path forward. So I just see this as probably going to happen more. I actually hope that Edify's in that position because I think that there's going to be some really good opportunities out there.
And you acquire more than the product, right? I mean, and of course there's established
talent.
You acquire talent, you acquire brand goodwill and track record with customers if the company has been around for a while. Certainly, an accelerated path to having that product depends on how accelerated that really is, because Dustin, you mentioned the integration that also then perhaps discounts that a little bit. But you're definitely in this space, you're acquiring brand goodwill, customer goodwill, you're acquiring talent. And so one of the calculi that goes into this, to your question, Owen, that is rarely talked about is, do I want my competitor to have that target? That actually happens more than you think. And so in a space as competitive as progress monitoring, I would be surprised if that was not a part of the calculus.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good transition to Autodesk and Procore, because one of the calculus Autodesk had was we don't want Procore to have building connected.
Wait, can I,
Aha.
before you go there, Dustin, I will just give people maybe something to think about. We don't have to dive into this, but just thinking about the reality capture space. Like OpenSpace done their announcement and they're moving into like the AI sphere of things and like site intelligence. We had Track 3D on last week who are like the lead, well, possibly the leading solution in actually ingesting this data and providing useful insights to it. BuildOts maybe were already in that field, but now they seem to have gone like one step, like sidestepped into something completely different, which the reality capture field was not thinking about before. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or opinions on that, then they should let us know. But yeah, let's go on to Autodesk and Procore Groundbreak. Dustin, you're there. How is it?
So I basically came here. I wanted to hear Procore's vision because it was also at Autodesk University, and then I actually wanted to go because I knew Tui was doing his transition, and one way or not, it's end of an era for a man who's really changed construction tech. So
Yeah.
paying my respects. What he did is unbelievable. So he deserves all the credit in the world. He won. He essentially built a company that in a space that had never seen an outcome like that. So I thought it was great to be there. Overall, I was left wondering how to perceive what Procore's strategy was from the keynote. So Tui handed off the baton to the new CEO, and he gave a few words, but then the main focus was on AI. And the fact is, Procore says they're releasing an agent for everything. We don't actually know what that means. And they also are releasing an agent kit so customers can develop their own agent. Now, mind you, we're in a room of, 3,000 builders. I don't know how many people in the room know what an agent is. I don't know how many are eager to get
100%.
into agent kit. So I don't know specifically who this was targeted for. They did talk about an example of working with Mortensen on Agent Kit about a closeout agent. It was interesting because there was no it wasn't like, oh yeah, we built this agent and it was amazing. It was more like we worked on it. And I know for a fact the agent's not live, but they said, my conversations were the progress that they were making was positive. So they seem to be fully investing in agents, and then they gave a light product update by Jeff at the end, which seemed like totally detached from this vision of AI and agents everywhere. So I thought, if I were to compare and contrast, it's like Autodesk said, hey, we have these AI tools that just allow you to design anything, and then from there you price construction, which is wrong. And then Procore basically talked nothing about the solutions they've provided the industry and just said, we're just agents everywhere now. And so I think both companies kind of missed their mark in talking to their customers. Yes, but they didn't talk about any problems they could solve. I mean, Autodesk has a challenge because their product portfolio is so big. I don't know why they don't divide it up into 3 different conferences. They have manufacturing, they have movies, and then they have the AEC space. They could be way more effective of trying to convey a keynote in that fashion, but you just didn't hear Procore talking about how we're making builders better until the very
Because they
end
can't?
with some product. Agent Kit, it solves everything.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing, because agents are very trendy, popular right now. So that's what's nice to say and nice to do. Maybe there's nothing in there that can really push the bar significantly.
Now you
for
will
the
be
builders.
branded an AI doomer in the comments section.
That's right.
I already
No, to
got
be-
told off by someone, by the way, for being too AI negative on Bricks and Bytes. So.
Oh, you're a doomer, man.
To be honest, it was a presentation for the analysts that Procore is now an AI company. That's the only reason you spend an entire
That's right.
hour.
Yeah.
That's just my takeaway.
PR.
I want to say 2 things on this, and then I'll go to the others. One is, I think 2 years ago, Martin and I were at Groundbreak, and I'm pretty sure they announced the exact same thing. And 2 years we're still here, and they're still announcing this. That's number one. And number 2 is, it's very reactive to the state of the state of the broader industry. When are we going to see true innovation and people actually bringing out stuff which is from within, like perhaps to what Martin you said about what the customers want, or thinking or making builders better. It's just like, oh, everyone's doing agents, let's just do agents. Like, cool.
Can I take that in a slightly different direction, guys? So one of the things that has been, as an outside, I don't own shares in Procore. I have no financial ties with Procore, none whatsoever. I have friends there, but that's it. What has been bugging me is how the succession has been happening in the leadership role. I've been part of one great CEO transition in one of the companies that I worked for, and that was 6 years in the making. That was literally the person was tapped 6 years before, was gradually taking on CEO responsibilities. The last 2 years, capital market communication, participation, etc. And that person slowly was able to build their vision, strategy, organization model. And then when it happened, it came not only with a ton of organizational context, but also it was prepared. The organization felt prepared. The capital markets felt prepared.
Like
I do
Buffett
not
and
understand.
Greg Abel, kind of.
I mean, I'm not sure how prepared both of them feel for this, but I would say as an outside, yeah, exactly right. But I mean, how can you these are big shoes to fill, obviously. But my point here in Procore is you had 20 plus years to prepare the succession. It's a product business and a distribution business. Sorry, there's nothing hard about the business model, okay? The products are hard and the business is hard, but the business model is very, very simple. And you moved into a new technological era, in your own view, 3.5 years ago. And here we are scrambling for succession. And then you scramble for, okay, what is actually the strategy? What is the product vision? How do we communicate with customers? Sorry, I think you guys get my point. I think that, to me, if I were a shareholder, that would be a regret I would have.
Like, I don't want to sound a boomer again, but like I said... Doomer, sorry, not boomer, but doomer. Like I said, what has been done has been done. There's no other ideas. And now we following the trends.
Let's let Luigi in and see if he's got any opinions on Groundbreak. What's up, Luigi?
Ciao, Luigi.
Hi, Luigi.
You didn't make your way up to Groundbreak?
No, our VP of sales is there. I'm here in Toronto.
We're just on the Groundbreak discussion. Any feedback?
Nothing to say about Groundbreak. I hear it's good. I've seen some of the booths. They're very nice. I'm wondering what Helix is, but I'm sure they've spoken about it in some sense.
Helix?
It's part of their AI. You have to brand everything with some special name.
Right. Did they say what it is? Like, is it an agent? Is it? I just don't know anything about it.
It's agents. It's an agent.
Jerry Maguire.
It's an agent crowd.
Well, we're guilty of this as well. I mean, like, there's a lot of agent washing happening here.
Tell us about your agents, Luigi.
Well, we just launched Scope Agent. Anyway, there's a lot of things to talk about, I suppose, but it's good to see everyone on the call. I'll leave it up to you guys on how you want to have the call, but it's great seeing everyone here.
Yeah.
Let's focus on you.
Yeah, tell us what's been happening recently. What's new?
We just
Luigi, and by the way, I'll just say it's great. I mentioned this in the intro, but you weren't here. But it's been great to be with you. I think I was saying that we spoke to Brendan like 3 years ago, and we're still in contact. So good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Owen and Martin. It's good seeing everyone here. We just closed our seed. We announced our seed, I should say, yesterday, but we closed our seed back in August. We closed it with Tricano Management. They're the primary funder of the Allen Institute for AI. And so we're developing some partnerships there on the AI research side. So we're very excited about that. We've just launched a new product, Scope Agent. Scope Agent generates scopes of work for general contractors doing CM jobs primarily. Lump sum, we're not really dipping our toes in right now, but we're very excited about that as well. So that's the short and brief.
Is it a pivot in any way, or you wouldn't say so?
It's really an expansion. We have definitely played around with our positioning a lot. So originally, we were perceived as contract review, and we really gravitated towards the estimator persona. Estimators don't typically do contract review, but some of them do. And as we started working with estimators, they wanted us to pull items out of their specs. They want us to pull items out of their drawings. And we ended up gravitating towards that. So, what I think the most interesting things we could talk about today is Dustin had a hot take. I think it was on our last call saying how this is, this is maybe a controversial take, as he mentioned, but is going to be commoditized. And obviously I disagree. But my VP of sales last night on the groundbreak floor sent me Dustin's clip and said, like, hey, what do you think about this? I said, obviously I respect Dustin's take, but I do disagree. And I'm happy to talk about why. But
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So I think that I do agree on. I do agree
Dustin's take? Hold on. So, Dustin, what's your take on this?
I was specifically referencing that 2D takeoff will be commoditized.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, 2D takeoffs will be commoditized, and that things like finding information within specs will be commoditized as
Can
well.
you just explain what would that mean? What's the example of that if it's commoditized?
The current industry standard is OST, and that is literally clicking on walls and lines and color coding it and taking areas and linear footages and cubic yards from foundation systems. There's some tools that try to automate this, and my position is that the quantities from drawings, you'll drop the files into whatever AI tool you want, eventually ChatGPT, and you'll be able to have the quantities that are represented in the drawings and be able to read all the labels and identify every single item in the drawings.
I'll subscribe.
That's my position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Luigi, you go. Yeah.
It's a good position. It does make sense. I'd say two things. One, just because something's a commodity doesn't mean that there's value that you can't extract. Like cloud service.
I didn't say that. That's actually, yes. I agree with that statement.
Yeah. So, cloud service providers, it's a commodity product, very profitable for Microsoft, very profitable for Amazon, Google, et cetera. So that's one thing. Two, I do agree to some degree. It will be done by the model providers like OpenAI and Google. Will it be done accurately? No, it won't. And in this case, I actually think estimating is more akin to autonomous driving than anything else. In autonomous driving, you need 100% accuracy, or close to 99.99% accuracy, because anytime you're incorrect, there's a human life. In drawing takeoffs, anytime you're incorrect, there's lost profit, or there's a dispute, or there's a lawsuit. So if you want a mediocre estimate, I do think you can use OpenAI. I think you can use Gemini, but they already have problems. GCs and subs already have problems with the quality of these takeoffs. And the limits are not necessarily model context length. So if it goes to 10 million tokens, it's not like this will be solved. These are hardware constraints. When you take a PDF, like an A1 PDF, you have to raster size it. And the DPI that's allowable to allow LLMs or VLLMs to read these drawings, it's very limited. The more you increase it, the more memory is required, and there are serious hardware constraints. So it may be possible in 4 years based on current tailwinds, but you can still build a good company in 4 years. So it may be a commodity. Will it be really good? I don't think so. At least this is what we're betting our company on. So
it's interesting. You should hear another talk I gave, because I also qualified it that level of precision matters when you're talking about takeoffs, and that is a key. So I do think that there's going to be a layer, like if you're doing plans and specs on a TI product, like that's actually going to be commoditized. But when you're talking about like a complex healthcare development with these really intricate details, framing support systems and everything else, that's where you're going to be able to build vertical specific solutions into models. That's going to be your proprietary IP.
And to your point, Dustin, on there being no moat, I know you've qualified it, but I do actually believe that for a company to say, hey, we do 99% accuracy for drawings, there is a moat there, as long as it's defensible. So where we look at where we're spending our money now that we've raised the seed, a lot of it's going to data set generation, because you cannot find these data sets online. You actually have to go hire estimators to build what we call our estimation graph, which is effectively all of the elements extracted from documents, all their associations, so that you can accurately say, when I look at a detail, that points to these elevations and it has this implication. That information is so hard to get online. But if you don't do that, you actually couldn't say,
Can you just
sure,
explain exactly then what you do? So you mentioned like some to do with data, like you're collecting data sets from drawings?
Imagine I'm
Mhm.
marketing myself to a general contractor, and I can say we do takeoffs with 99% accuracy. Okay, and I can say that, and I mean it. For me to say that, I need to have a varied data set across a substantial amount of drawings where our model has given us output that we can verifiably say has 99% accuracy, meaning for the 10 elements in this drawing, we found 9.99 of them. And that data set is very hard to get, meaning if you plugged in a drawing set into ChatGPT right now and you asked for the quantities, you'd be surprised at how long it takes you to verify that that's correct. You'd have to do the takeoff. You actually need the takeoff to know whether it's accurate. And so by doing the takeoff and having that data set, you know the failure modes. Those failure modes then inform your technical roadmap. So with all the training data that's available, you'd be surprised at how bad VLLMs are reading tables. Tables are still a big problem, especially within drawings. Imagine if you've seen a door and hardware table within a drawing, it could be 30 columns. So all I'm saying is that there is a moat. The moat is your data set, which is proprietary, and the technical innovations that you build as a result, right? If you can build a 100% accurate table reader, there is a technical moat there because for all the money that's been invested there, it's still not possible. It's not 100% accurate. There's no solution, not Tesseract, not the fancy models that are coming out of Google, nothing can do tables accurately. And if you miss something at a table, the cost can be quite high. So
Patrick,
that would be
you had your hand
my
raised. You wanna
some of
go?
the moats
Yeah.
there.
So just throwing in a fun artifact from today. So Bastien at Rayon actually posted today, and I found it very interesting. Also working in 2D, basically building a modern AutoCAD in the browser for spatial design. So he's passionate about the same problem. Blah 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 blah. So he posted, okay, if you ask ChatGPT to count the sides of a simple irregular polygon, it will get it right 7% of the times, proven by a study. If you attach a letter to each of the sides of the polygon, it is correct 93% of the time.
Wow.
Fun
That's
artifact.
That's very cool.
Crazy.
I think it's super interesting what you guys say because I said that earlier as well, but my experience with ChatGPT and how I use it is 80-90% accuracy for creating proposals, and I don't mind spending a few minutes to just tweak it. But it is interesting what you said, proprietary data sets. I think the difficulty here is that if someone is trying to create these proprietary data sets for all of the construction, this is almost, I don't know if it's impossible or not, but sounds like an impossible task. How about creating them for particular type of construction, whatever it is, I don't know, small residential or high rise, and that would make this data set or maybe even 100% accurate rather than trying to build everything for everything?
I think it depends on the workflow, and it mostly depends on the workflow. For example, in quantity takeoffs, what you see are people specializing in division. So some people will do division 8, some people will do division 10, some people will do division 28, for example. And then if you're doing scopes of work or scope sheets, then they'll go by asset, because the trick to making a good scope sheet is that you know the typical things relative to the asset and the jurisdiction that are typically missed. So it totally depends. I think building one data set for the entire industry, I don't know if it's possible, but I also don't necessarily know what that means. But for quantity takeoffs, if it's varied enough, you could build it. It was just very expensive. I mean, this is why companies like Mercor and Surge are getting paid so much money, is because there are very unique problems that you need specialists to provide input on. And it's hard to do that at scale. It's very hard.
Luigi, I have a question for you because you said something interesting. You said you're working with CM. Does that mean you're working with design build to build the scope sheets? Because you said not for plans and specs, but then you talk about, 2D quantification. Well, that's when you have 100% CDs where you actually want the exact quantities because that's what you're going to be measured against. But if you're earlier than that, exact quantities aren't even defined.
Yeah, we don't do exact quantities now. What we're doing
Okay.
is extracting the elements. So when I say elements, I mean there is a high voltage transformer, or there's a housekeeping pad. We don't know the quantities yet. because we don't have a data set for that, but we can recognize them, just not accurately. And when I say accurately, I couldn't tell you that there's 5 housekeeping pads, but I could tell you that there is a housekeeping pad. And then typically in scope sheets, you just need to communicate that's their responsibility. So that's why we're starting there. And when I say CM versus plan and spec, sorry, I'm saying lump sum. I use those two things congruently, plan and spec and lump sum. Lump sum, we just see to be a little bit different. Even though the contractor is taking the risk, there's usually just not enough time. It's not part of their process to develop a scope sheet. So we'd have to convince them that they should. And I just see that as a bit of an uphill battle. Whereas in CM, they develop it, they care. They want to make sure that the owner's reputation is protected, and by extension them as well. And then there are a lot of scope gaps that end up influencing fights between subtrades and GCs. So we see CM as a good place to start.
Sorry, serious question. What is CM?
Yeah, in the UK, CM construction management would be like a client employs a construction manager, and rather than a construction manager doing the work in-house with a lot of their own in-house trades, they'll just like subcontract each package out. So I think, Luigi, what you're describing is your platform is producing the scope sheets that the construction manager, i.e. the CM, then sends to each trade contractor to say like, right, you need to have included for ABC, XYZ as part of your pricing or submission. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. And there are a couple of components of that which help prevent scope gaps, but there's the explicit stuff. The explicit stuff is kind of easy to get by asset, because if I'm doing a hospital, chances are if I recycle my old scope sheet, there will be the same assets. It's the stuff that's not
Which is the standard practice of every builder, is to recycle their scope sheet. And then you see the carry. It's awesome. If you look at a scope sheet, if they take it from the template, I guarantee, like, if you went through all their standard scope sheets, you'll see stuff that's legacy terms that were left from one project, but just got copied and pasted and rolled forward. It's pretty hysterical.
Yeah. We don't use blueprints anymore. Why don't you provide blueprints?
Oh, by the way, sometimes when you print these things and still on like the header and footer is the old project name, when you print them out on paper, that used to happen many years ago.
I mean, in our industry, in the design space, 80% again is copy, paste, adjust. Like nothing new to me.
Totally. But this is how we see, the market, as we see there's a lot of related workflows that people in pre-construction are doing, mainly estimators. Things like developing scope sheets. It can be a PM task, but we do see it as a pre-construction workflow. And we think that will revolve around a central experience like chat. Now, chat is a commodity business. Everyone can do chat, but can you do it accurately? Do you know the terms that a contractor is saying implicitly without having to ask them to clarify? That we think that there is alpha to eke out there. So that's how we're orienting ourselves, is we look at ourselves as an estimator co-pilot that can do various workflows very, very well with high accuracy, which is where we're really focused on. And the whole approach is to develop custom data sets to make sure that we actually are, and verifiably so. And we think that will develop the best trusting relationship possible with our customers.
So can I have a definite answer here? Like, will you guys, or will the industry create accurate, I don't know, how do you call it, scope sheets or accurate data sets, or it might never be 100% accurate, and there will be this human element that will always have to take a risk and sign something off rather than rely brainlessly on AI?
And Luigi, sorry, by definite, Martin means whatever you say, he's going to believe for the next 5 years at least. So get this right.
I think the latter. I don't see a world where a contractor wholeheartedly trusts AI output without looking at it themselves. There's just too much institutional knowledge. There's too much experience that goes into making sure that it's correct. So what I think will happen is there will be, man and machine, quote unquote man, person and machine working together to develop scope sheets, just much faster and much better.
Yes, exactly.
And a lot of the disputes that result from these projects, it is at the sub and GC level. They're just really swept under the rug, and there's a lot of horse trading. So I think what will happen is we will propose the scope sheet. They'll look it over. They'll add in a couple of items and ideally build templates within Provision, and they'll end up using us, but not to completely abstract away from the process. It's still very important. We'll just speed it up rapidly.
One way how I rationalize to myself, not coming from construction management, how what you're saying, Luigi, registers in a let's say generic commercial mind, is the following: whatever you get wrong in your bid, typically you cannot make up for it just with better execution during the construction phase. You can be lucky that the material prices perhaps are better than you calculated, but you cannot make up for it with better coordination on the construction side, which is that's why you have to nail that bid. And that's why a good contractor that, whose livelihood depends on their business will absolutely not fully trust an automated solution.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100% agree.
I've never been on the record for saying that they're going to trust the 2D takeoff 100%. At the end of the day, I think we get lost on quantities is quantities. That does not equal a price. There is much nuance that need to go into how you're going to install and produce the product.
And I
that
agree
is
with
often
you there,
lost
Dustin.
in pre-con. That's super lost in pre-con all the time.
And I mean, you know it. How old are these price databases that they kick around internally and treat as proprietary voodoo? I mean,
yeah.
Well, it's funny because people want a level of precision on quantities that's 99.999 and 6 sigma, right?
3-year-old person.
But their unit cost is wildly off. They have no idea. They can't justify it. There's no backup. There's no production rate. There's no So it's kind of funny and hysterical. At the end of the day, well, we know the quantities. We have no idea what it actually takes to install at the time.
I agree.
Yeah.
Can I switch gears here? Luigi, come on. Well, let's talk more about provision.
Sure.
So through our relationship, we've been constantly, and sorry, you did not brief me on this. I'm just fanboying. Again, I don't have shares in your business. I'm personally invested in your success just because you're such an amazing founder, but I have no financial participation. So I'm allowed to fanboy here, okay? Even against my personal ethical code. So I think two things that the world should understand. One, you have been one of the craziest capital efficient growth companies at this early stage that I have seen stateside. Well, technically you're Maple Leaf side, but you're obviously doing your business stateside. So that has been absolutely, I think, bang on. And secondly, the level of granularity, how you understand your customers, I found that always very impressive. And your customers speak to the same language. So you don't have to comment. That's fine. I just wanted to put that on the record. I'm fanboying here a little bit, but I think you've done an amazing job building a real business and not just some narrative or storytelling, whatever. I think, I wish you all the best that will continue, of course, and I think it will.
I appreciate that, Patrick. And I'll be incredibly happy when we can make a meaningful dent in the industry. And, we look at impact a few ways. I ultimately just want GCs to be more profitable. I think it's crazy for how much risk they take on and how much they know their trade. I just can't believe that they're ending up with 1% to 2% profit margins. It's crazy.
It is.
And that's in the face of a growing infrastructure backlog and owner projects that need to be procured. And, GCs are closing shop. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'll be very, very happy when these companies are flourishing and they're making 10% profit margins and they can invest in technology and staffing and training. That's a world that I want to live in.
So now you have 7 million. What about capital efficiency now?
Yeah. Where's the money going?
I will say things have loosened a little bit. I mean, we purchased provision.com.
Oh, no. Damn. 6.5 million, so you got 5 million.
That I realized.
It couldn't be cheap. Provision.com couldn't be cheap.
I think we got a good deal. Some people look
How
at it as
much?
2 words. Provision. I can't say. But anyway, I think it's very important. What I didn't realize at the pre-seed, and this was a hard lesson 1, was that branding is so important. And if you do not invest in your branding, people will make a branding story for you. So I wouldn't say
never anyone has said this on Bricks and Bytes before. Go for it.
It's so true in construction tech. I mean, you could have the best product that's the most accurate, but if you don't have a narrative and if you're not pounding the drum, then it's going to be made for you. And, I will say that the capital efficiency story was held against us, right? As we had people who raised more money than us, we had customers who said, like, I haven't even raised a seed. How much have you guys raised? Why would I work with you? It looks like you've raised $1 million. So
because you're not leaking cash and you're around next year.
Well, I do think that where we failed, I wouldn't say that anyone's doing. I think people are just playing the game, right? And that's just the game to play. You need to have a brand, you need to be loud, and you need to be seen as a trustworthy company. So, provision.com, it helps people underwrite our trustworthiness. To a degree, it is very psychological. But if you want to build a world-class brand, I mean, look at all the companies that IPO. None of them don't have their .coms. They all do. And that's our intent. right? So we really believe in ourselves, and we're going to underwrite that opportunity, and we are going to be spending more money as a result. I mean, when you track your S&M spend, it's it's more. It's definitely more. But I do believe that it's going to be we're going to generate good ROIC on that.
I think you're a good allocator of that capital. I think you've proven to be.
Yeah, we'll see at the Series A.
I got a feeling we're going to be integrating together.
I hope so. I actually think it is very complementary, Dustin. And
I do too.
A lot of
especially as we move into value engineering and option engineering, it's going to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to completely solve the document extraction issue at a very, very high accuracy to the point where you don't have to worry about it, and we free up your time to work on value engineering. That's where I do actually see the estimator providing the most value. They just can't, and subcontractor pricing, right? And really pressuring those relationships. Not that I want that, but that's where you eat that alpha on projects.
Josh, Luigi, Josh commented on our live stream and said, how are you going about marketing provision and getting customers?
So right now we're going to be doing more field marketing. And so we'll have a presence at these events from now on. So Ben, our VP of sales, he's at Groundbreak. I'll be going to Detroit next week at a risk event hosted by NFP. And, the YC canonical advice, and I know, Dustin, you have strong feelings about YC as well, which I'd love to talk to you about.
Hey, it says don't go to conferences, actually. I put a post up about this some time ago.
It says don't go to conferences with the proviso unless it's the best way to meet customers. And you know what? YC knows what they're talking about here, but it's so wrong for construction.
So wrong for construction.
It's so wrong. All of our growth to date has been word of mouth and cold outbound. All of it. So it's people dialing for dollars, and it's people talking. That's it.
You should go to Advancing Precon.
Yeah, we will. So now it's going to be content. I really admire Scott Wolf. I know you have a relationship with him as Dustin too. And
I was literally texting him this morning.
We hopped on the phone a bunch during our raise, and he obviously advocates for content first. And I really believe in that. And it bodes well with our brand. Like, I do believe in helping people and just providing content, not behind a paywall, but just helping people navigate how to use AI and how to de-risk their projects. So we'll be doing that from now on.
Is he on your cap table?
No.
Scott's fantastic.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah, he's awesome. He's great. I know I probably overstayed my welcome, Owen, but
no, we actually extended your slot before we went live, so we knew there was a lot to talk about. And look, and here we are. But yeah, thanks for coming, Luigi.
Of course,
doing great things. We obviously had a great chat with you. So
yeah, I appreciate you having me. Dustin, great seeing you. Patrick, great seeing you as always. Martin, thanks for everything.
Thank you.
See you, gents. Bye.
Bye, Luigi.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
He defended his position really well. I actually don't think we're that far apart. The way most people use 2D quantification, like 90% of the market is going to be fine. But then he's talking about people that are building sophisticated work. Agree. You're going to need augmentation of what these standard models can do. And there's going to be a lot of value in how you can extract the data and utilize it.
I think that on the point of people not trusting this information, I can tell you, having done takeoffs and work still in communication and contact with people that do these takeoffs, never ever are they going to trust a tool which tells them how much quantity of something exists within a building. Not yet. I think it will change, but I think what's very smart is how Provision are tackling this. So they're not starting with quantification. They're going through the scope, put the scope documents, and there's an element there of building trust with the customer first, and then you kind of like start building on that and release the takeoff and say like this is 99.9% accurate. I guess your chances of convincing them that it is actually 99.9% accurate is better than if you just say, oh, here's our takeoff solution and it is accurate and you should trust it.
I think that's funny because Autodesk position, it's funny, I was talking to a GC yesterday. They're like, well, what Autodesk did was create two failure points. First, no GC has ever trusted the quantities from BIM, right? They're like, because they can theoretically get quantities out of a model right now. And then Autodesk is like, okay, so we're going to have our BIM model, and then we're going to have an AI tool that's going to take the quantities, which we don't trust, and then it's going to generate quantities for our estimates. So now we have an AI tool talking to something that they don't trust, and I have two things that they don't trust to derive quantities for the project.
One of the reasons why BIM is such a myth and BS, if that really worked, if that really worked, that would spit the quantities straight away.
Yeah, it should
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in theory.
I mean, why would you need another tool to assess what the bin has done and how much and etc.? Like,
Yeah, we have Tala coming on in a moment. But Josh, you asked another question. Maybe we'll get to it at the end. Thanks for all the questions. Yeah, great.
I was going to say one thing on the Procore transition, because Patrick, I thought you brought up a really good point. It did not feel like when they were both on stage, it did not feel like a smooth transition. It felt like it was very awkward, to be quite frank. It was like it was an awkward moment. Like their correspondence, their interaction was very rehearsed, but like not they weren't good actors. And I couldn't help but leave like this is definitely he's coming in as a transition CEO to just I feel like manage the business, but there was not a person on the stage that I could see also taking the helm. And I did talk to someone. I was like, "What are you working on?" He's like, "Well, I'm helping with the transition." So like, there wasn't a lot of prep work on this transition, but they don't have someone that of the people that presented at the keynote. Like, I can't imagine anyone there like being the person that takes the reins and inspires this organization to go out and achieve the next level of greatness. So
interesting points, Dustin.
I
Shall
mean,
we
that-
go
that's-
Tala in?
Sure, that's the moment when you really want a Steve Ballmer jump around like a bouncy ball on stage.
I recently saw that again.
I mean, it did its job. Fun fact, I guess everybody knows, but Steve Ballmer is more wealthy than Bill Gates, the founder. Steve is not.
Ah, interesting.
He didn't sell.
No. Hey, Tala, how's it going?
Hello. I think I missed a fun conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You
things
did,
are
but we're
good.
glad you're here. We're glad you're here. Hey, Tala, could you tell us a little bit about Candid Intelligence? So you guys are here. You recently raised a $5.5 million seed round. So tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, of course. So Candid started like a few months ago, but the like me and my co-founder Hassan, we've been in this space for a while now, right? So we have this sort of a unique background where we were both mechanical engineers deep into the energy infrastructure space. And then we met at Carnegie Mellon, and CMU has this sort of stereotype where even the drama majors and the music majors end up doing machine learning. So we kind of made a hard pivot from energy infrastructure to AI infrastructure, right? So that's kind of our background coming into the space, having this sort of a dual purpose and this dual perspective going into this. But more about Candid, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to collapse the pre-construction timeline. So as it stands today, most construction projects, especially the ones we are going after, like in the EPC space, they take like a median of 4 years to complete, of which the first 2-ish years, right? It's the bidding, the detail engineering and procurement. This process it's being done within like closed walls with engineers in front of computers. And this is 2 years of decision making and design and chasing vendors before which the first nail even goes into the ground. So by us collapsing this sort of timeline, which happens before the construction even starts, what we're trying to really do is not just save time and money and all of that good stuff, but also start construction a year sooner. What this really means is we can also end construction a year sooner in an industry which is riddled by delays and like delays with schedules and like they're never meeting on time. But by ending construction a year sooner, we also unlock this extra year of revenue at the end, which like fundamentally changes the way a lot of these construction projects work, how they profit and how quickly they can get to revenue.
She's saying collapse pre-construction from years to months, or not to hours even, but in the particular construction type or overall?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So I would say the way I look at construction is there's like 3 buckets. The first bucket is GCs. It's like general contractors. This space is there's a lot of business here, but they're like the workflows aren't repeatable, and as such, it's not a good sticky business to build around. the middle vertical, right, which is like the kind of construction you would see typically, buildings, bridges, residential complexes, whatever. This is a good space, but we focus on the third vertical, which is construction for energy infrastructure. So what we have here are projects ranging from anything from like data centers to nuclear engineering facilities to chemical processing plants. And these might sound different, but to us, a data center, right, is not that much different than like a large refrigerator. Because think about it, that's the kind of paradigm we're dealing with, and the workflows are pretty repeatable within this. So even within the AEC buckets, we focus on EPCs.
Dustin,
And there's a lot of reasons why, we focused on this bucket essentially. One of the reasons is that the workflows are repeatable. Like, going back to the earlier statement, over here, like majority of the business relies on these 4 diagrams, which are like PNIDs, isometrics, plot plans, and process flow diagrams. And as such, for us, our work is pretty cut out for us. Like when I was working in this space, I was working at this company called Chiyoda, right? It's a large Japanese EPC. This was like 8 years ago. I remember, like, despite having access to all of this software, we would still spend so much time just like dragging and dropping. Like, I remember I was designing a heat exchanger on this software called HTRI, right? And the way it would work is you sit with the senior piping engineer and a process engineer, and you toggle different values on this proprietary software that the company is paying maybe like 10K, 100K a month, like 100K a year in licenses. And so incredibly inefficient. You change the piping diameter by like 10%. Now you have to go and like change the heat mass balance equation somewhere else. And this, forget about like LLMs and AI and agents. This is a simple like regression problem, right? This is like simple gradient descent. You should be able to find out, like, given X features, how to optimize it. So that's the kind of space we're dealing with. This entire ecosystem is very underserved. So yeah, hopefully
Are you focused on accelerating the finalization of designs? Because you said we're going to compress all of pre-construction. I'm not tracking where you're saying you're working on PNIDs and that's going to compress all of pre-construction.
Let's start from the beginning, right? So in the pre-construction space, you obviously have like the front-end engineering design, which is known as the FEED, after which you do a bidding process, and then you do detail engineering and procurement, right? Let's start with the top of the funnel, the first step of the process. Sorry about that. That's my cat.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, he's had a little bit of an accident, but I think he's doing okay. I think so. The thing is, I'm moving to SF tomorrow, wrapping up shop in Seattle, and like within 24 hours, they're selling everything and moving to SF. So my house has been a little bit of a mess. So he's having a great time because he's getting to smell all of these new things. But,
nice.
Going back to Dustin's previous question, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Works is, let's say, like every major construction project, right? When it starts, the first step is the bidding process. Now, the way this works is on day 1, you have like 2-ish months, and like engineers have to spend hours trying to like go through these documents and try to make some engineering decisions. Unfortunately, engineers really only have enough time to skim over a small fraction, like 5 to 10% of the thousands of documents they're dumped with on day 1, right? So the way this usually works is they skim over like the most important design calculations, making sure they're compliant with ASME API standards, etc. And as a result of which, when they're trying to answer 2 questions in the bidding process, that of time and cost, they end up with a plus minus 25% error margin, right? So this is the first step of the process. So like, what does this plus minus 25% error margin really mean, right? So like on the higher end, you stand to lose the bid to someone else who's being more competitive. But on the lower end, you might win the bid, but what happens to your profit margins? Like, because you also got to deliver, right? And that's kind of where you make most of your money. So that's kind of where we come in, right? We build these like vertical agents that not only reduce this error margin from plus minus 25% to plus minus 10%, we also reduce the amount of time it takes from like 12-ish weeks median to like 2 weeks. So where PNIDs come in is at this stage, more than half of the document half of the context lies within diagrams, and anyone trying to like work with agents in the space, etc., can't automate the entire life cycle because they're going to keep running into roadblocks. There's some information in a diagram which they can't parse. And we come from a computer vision background. Like I was at Meta working on mapping systems. So that's the first thing we did. We built our ontology on top of these process and instrumentation diagrams, and as such, we have represented in this sort of a graph sort of structure on JSON. It's pretty trivial for now, but it really gets the job done. So now, like, not only can you answer questions or like perform tasks on different parts of the parts of the pre-construction timeline, but what also happens is that, let's say there are inconsistencies in specifications between different diagrams, because each diagram refers or like adds more context to the same pump, same compressor, right? So you can connect all of them. So this was the first thing we solved with respect to like PNIDs and diagrams. And that is also like one of our entry modes into the space. And I would say the second, maybe let me pause here, right? Does that make sense?
Yes. So you also enhancing the design, helping them enhance the design, or is that correct way of understanding?
So we're not helping design just yet, because I feel like that's more abstract. There's a lot of human input that goes into it. Even after the design, right? There's a lot of analysis that needs to be done. Let's say the engineer comes up with a design for a plant. There's going to be like 25 pumps, not 20, that's a lot, like 5 pumps with 25 flanges, etc. And now the engineer needs to see the perfect layout for this in this project. And typically most of these projects are brownfield projects. So even after the design is done, there's a lot of engineering work that goes in. They have to maybe calculate the amount of pipes that can sit on one rack, right? Typically, this would take a while. Engineers would have to go in Excel sheets and change values, etc. What we do is we just help automate that, because not only can we perform actions on the information, we can also work with software in this space which does not have APIs. So that's the second aspect of it. But yeah, we don't directly help with design, at least not today. We just help them go from the design stage to the construction stage much sooner. And we do help them in the process as they make decisions regarding the design.
So this is why you're working with EPC, because they're going to own the engineering, procurement, and construction.
That's right. There's 2 players here, right? There's the owners, operators. Let's say someone who wants the data center built or the energy facility built, right? Our primary customers are EPCs because it's an easier market to sell to. The bar for entry is a little lower. And secondly, what happens with EPCs is everything is based on billable hours, right? So it's easy for us to show quick ROI on clear success metrics, because all we do is we integrate with like Primavera, P6, etc., like their scheduling software. We take their tasks and we reduce it. So the way to think about this is, let's say you have 1,000 hours worth of work this month. Engineers would still come in and still try to pull tasks from Primavera and try to solve them. But what's going to happen is, as they're working on their own tasks, the tasks will keep reducing. So let's say instead of 1,000 hours worth of tasks, they only have to manually work on 500 hours worth of tasks, and the remaining, we take care of it behind the scenes. Using the same software that they've always used. Even if they don't have APIs, we use computer use agents that sit on top of your screen, take screenshots, work with the rasterized image, and try to make structure in that chaos. Like we move the cursor on your behalf, in fact. And we try to do those things on these softwares so that both sides are covered.
Cool. Yeah, Tyler, maybe tell us one thing. Like you've clearly got a very technical background, and I'm very curious as to what you saw when you came from, like, you were at Meta, Samsung, with machine learning engineering. So what are some of the things that surprised you when you came to the construction industry, when you like started immersing yourself and speaking to potential customers and so on? Were you surprised at how maybe archaic things are that are being done in the industry?
So the surprise, the element of surprise was kind of broken for me because 2 reasons. One, like, we've been working in this space, right? Both me and my co-founder Hassan, we worked in this space. We've across different, from the EPC side, from the asset integrity side. We've also worked at the owner operating companies. So things were archaic as it is, like a few years ago. But even now, right, when we went into this space, like at Meta, there's so many, like, we're working on the frontier of like tech, but something as simple as revision history, right, like in VS Code, that itself is so unique to people in the EPC space because there are multiple people working on the same document. For them, it was like almost like an aha moment, like, oh, damn, you can actually see who's making edits to the same document. And they have document controlling software for this, but still not at the same level as it is with respect to a simple tool like VS Code. And the other surprise that really got us was when we would go to them, right? We would tell them, okay, we are going to help you reduce the number of tasks that you have to do to get from point A to point B, etc. And like we're using AI, most people in this space don't have the most familiarity with what AI really means, right? Because of media, etc. For them, in their minds, they correlate AI with like
Agents.
ChatGPT, with LLM agents. And for us, it was the sort of a coaching experience. We would have to like make a version 0 of the product, go out and show it to them. In fact, the first version of our product didn't have any LLMs, any agents, nothing. It was just pure computer vision algorithms, which would read PNIDs, extract all of the information. And yeah, this was something they would have to do and spend 10 hours every week. And we just prepared the material takeoff sheet for them, like almost instantly using PNIDs. So that actually inspired more confidence in them because they could see what AI was capable of doing beyond just agents and LLMs. And I think that's been a good approach we've tried to use.
Yeah, take on. Cool. Any
Uh,
last question from you guys as we're out on our slot?
Yeah. So where are you spending money? What's the next steps for you?
Yeah, so for us, there's three aspects of doing a business, right? The raising money side, like investors, that's kind of de-risk for us. We tried to go in and raise a pre-seed round that week, and on the Monday we started the pre-seed. We got so much interest, we decided to simply go into a seed round. We stopped the pre-seed midway. We honored the ones we had committed to, but then we ended up with 3x oversubscribed seed round. We also have early commitments for the Series A with discounts, etc. But my point is the investor side is completely de-risked, so we don't have to spend time there. With customers, we already have some momentum there, so that's been good. All of our money is now going towards hiring people and making sure we're able to like meet the expectation of these customers that we have. So yeah, we've already hired one person. He's one of my closest friends from MIT. Like he's also ironically the first co-founder I ever had as part of the MIT Sandbox program. We went on to do different things, but we reconnected, and he's the first hire. And then yeah, that's how we are going about this.
Great to hear about this rise. I'm just curious, was there anything that investors weren't super clear about in terms of the idea or the business?
Oh yeah, that's the whole thing. So when we first started, right, we were pitching to like investors, and we had to help them build their thesis because a lot of people didn't know much about the space, much less about the energy construction side because they're more familiar with AEC and general construction. So I think what helped was we had this deck, like a small deck, like a 5-page deck or whatever. And then as questions kept coming up, I did this sort of nearest neighbors like, okay, this question is being asked way too much. So I added a slide in the data room and just linked the slide to it. And then that slide ended up becoming like that deck ended up becoming like a 20-page deck. And the core slides were just like 5 slides and everything else is hidden. But people had so many questions about how the space works, who's the buyer, how do you navigate these long sales cycles, what is the success metric. So yeah, helping them get clarity on like the space was beneficial. But yeah, investors, I think at the end of the day, they're trying to take bets. They saw the progress we had, they saw the customers we had. Some of them also spoke to the customers we had, and the customers were so excited that at that point, I think that's what like moved the needle in our favor.
Very cool.
Okay,
Chala, thanks so much for coming. Good luck.
Oh, this is awesome. Have a good day, guys.
Take care.
Bye, Chala.
Bye. All right.
Cool. Yeah, some of that stuff was a little bit above my technical pay grade, I must admit. Hopefully it made sense to a few of you.
You're going to speak at Rick's soon.
Too late. I already done it on Tuesday.
How was it?
Well, I mean, talk about skeptics of technology, and these are the people that will be using tools like Provision and even Edify. So There's some work to be done, I think.
I can't
We
help.
didn't even bring up agents, by the way. We agreed in the panel that we would not bring up agents because it would be too technical for the
Oh my
audience that was
God.
there. Yeah. Dustin, you were saying?
Well, hold on. I'm going to the website. Doesn't it say we compress pre-con from 2 years to hours?
I recall something similar
Yeah.
to that. Yes.
Compress months of pre-construction work into a few compute hours. It's a really bold claim.
I think it's
Very.
for a very narrow use case, right? It's not for every type of projects. I mean, it's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, it's just this is one thing in general, is one of things I frustrate with is when people aren't specific about what their claims actually are referencing to.
I've got a phrase for that. It's called Western marketing.
I've heard you call it something worse.
Yeah.
Shall we go? Hey, I think Josh in the chat has an interesting question. It's actually for you, Dustin. So here we go. And it's quite a cool one, maybe for some thought-provoking statements. So if you're starting again from the beginning and going the bootstrapped route, what would be the most effective way to grow a construction startup?
I would find a co-founder that is very technical. I'd probably actually try to find a team of co-founders. I'd probably have one engineering lead, one CTO that can also write code, and product designer to start out. And I do a lot of the product management and sales. So that would be a core team. I'd rather build it with a team. We could probably moonlight till we got an MVP, and so we could get a product to market. I would probably use contract engineering if my team needed some help there. I would go door to door in my local market and literally show up, and I've already talked about this, to every single builder in 10-mile area. Yeah, it's really simple. Find some people you want to spend a lot of time with on nights and weekends, get a product to market, and then get people to write a check.
Beautiful.
And what Luigi said again, what was this sentence? Oh, and you will remember.
About branding?
About marketing.
branding?
Yeah, about branding and
Investing in the
marketing.
brand? Yeah, I never heard this before.
Yeah.
In this, obviously you read marketing books and books written by people who do branding, right? And they say
We'll
it's
look
like
at the
most important
transcript,
thing.
but Luigi's message was that if you don't do your own branding early, someone
Yeah,
else will do your
the
branding
industry
for you.
will do it for you or on you. Yeah. I think it's quite very interesting actually, because I actually don't know his business that well, but sounds like, Patrick, you know much better. But by bootstrapping and perhaps being profitable, which to me is a great thing, he probably was not committing too much time on resources for marketing, and now he feels like it probably he would have been better had he done that. So
I actually think he could be more specific about their solution, because it says AI for pre-con. And like, honestly, your message can get lost in white noise. Like, be specific early on.
Yeah.
Be specific early on about the problems you're trying to solve. Like, he's not AI for all of pre-con.
No.
And this is the thing, when people say things like all of pre-con, pre-construction is super vast. It incorporates design, engineering, construction, feasibility, permitting, all of these things. So, like, market what you are. Yes, you can expand your messaging later on. I just think that is more effective.
Anyone and anything exciting to share before we wrap up for the week? Any industry gossip?
You tell us when you're back.
I'm not
from
taking the bait.
You tell us when you're back from the
prison cell.
I'm going to have gossip next week. I just want to confirm what I can go public with.
Oh,
exciting!
That's a great way to grow our audience retention. Thank you, Dustin.
Yeah, I'll tease it. I tease it as the drama from Groundbreak, as it's been reported. Patrick.
I'm really outside my comfort zone, I have to say. But
Come on.
Hey, Owen up the insurance I hear.
Don't tell people. They're really going to come for
hold
us.
on, does that extend to you and me, Dustin? I think that's company insurance.
Oh, no. We need to review our guest policy then.
Yeah.
All good. Cool. All right, guys, let's call this a day. Thank you so much. That's fun as always.